Welcome back to another UCL Fantasy Best Limitless team, this time out of the second leg of the semi-finals. In Matchday 12, I'll be discussing the best 50-man squad for this chip with unlimited budget. If you haven't used the Limitless already, I'd highly recommend using it now. And to be honest, you can still build a very easy team with a lot of money left over. So the Limitless isn't that useful at this stage of the competition with so many big players and teams being knocked out in the quarterfinals. Smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's get this video to the 200 likes and let's keep on pushing towards new goals like 25k subscribers. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. On the Limitless, I would go for Donnarumma over Kobel, but I think both goalkeepers are good choices and it depends on who you back to reach the final if you're using the wildcard or free transfers. But with this chip, you just focus on this match day only, and with Paris Saint-Germain being at home, I think they're the team to back in this fixture, and I also think they will go through to the final, but I could be wrong about that. And Donnarumma hasn't been particularly great. The best goalkeeper by far in UCL Fantasy this season has been Kobel. He has made penalty saves, kept a few clean sheets in the group of death, and Dortmund have progressed very far in this competition. So I wouldn't mind going for Kobel for the Tuesday games, but I'm going for Donnarumma on the Limitless. And for the Wednesday, I'm going to go for Lunin, who will start according to Carlo Ancelotti. Courtois is back in the mix and he got a start over the weekend against Cadiz, but I think it's going to be Lunin starting again, and that's what was stated by Carlo Ancelotti in his press conference. This might not be the case for the final in Matchday 13 should Real Madrid reach that stage, but he's in the clear for Matchday 12, and I would go for these two goalkeepers with the home ties in the second leg of the semi-final. So if you disagree with anything, be sure to let me know. And Neuer is definitely a decent option, and Kobel for me is definitely viable over Donnarumma, but I'm very happy for going for the Italian and Lunin as the two goalkeepers on the Limitless. One major advantage of using the Limitless now is you can really hone in on certain teams, and I think PSG is the one to highlight for Matchday 12. Those on the wildcard or using free transfers might not do that. They might go for a more balanced approach, and I'm also doing the same thing, as I'll cover in the team selection video and podcast. But I think PSG could be the team to target defensively and go for 3 or 4 to cover them and really hope for that clean sheet. And Hakimi is probably the best PSG defender, but the second one who really gives him a run for his money is Marquinhos. These are the two defenders to go for. They're nailed on, they've got ball recovery potential, and in the case of Hakimi, a lot of assist threat, bombing down that right hand side, and Marquinhos has bullet headers in him and he's done it before in the Champions League. But the two best defenders, I would argue, in the knockout stages are Mats Hummels, who has 21 more points than Hakimi, who is the second highest scoring defender in UCL Fantasy, and he has 108 ball recoveries, which is incredible. I think Mats Hummels is the best defender in the Champions League. Even if Dortmund aren't the greatest defensively, I think Hummels with the ball recoveries is the very best option in this position. And I would also go for a second Dortmund defender, but of course you might disagree with this, and I'm going for Maatsen. Ryerson's also decent, and Schlotterbeck. I honestly wouldn't mind any single one of them, but I think Maatsen and Schlotterbeck are two of the best defenders to partner Mats Hummels, and they might concede a few goals here and lose the game, but they can get ball recoveries and salvage a 4 to 5 pointer. Now, this is probably the worst option in this defensive line. He hasn't been great in the Champions League this season, not many assists or goals, and ball recoveries are few and far between. But to cover Real Madrid defensively, I would go for Carvajal, who was suspended in Matchday 11. He is now back from that suspension, and no players are at risk of getting that due to yellow cards and having an accumulation 3+ yellows, because they were reset in Matchday 11. The only way a player can be suspended for the Champions League final is if they get sent off in Matchday 12. Now, Rudiger would be my preference, but he doesn't get many ball recoveries at Real Madrid, and David Alaba is the only Real Madrid player who hasn't been in training. Otherwise, I go for David Alaba as my favourite Madrid defensive coverage. As a result, since he's not available at the moment, I'm going for Dani Carvajal, but honestly, it's slim pickings. You look at the Bayern Munich defenders, Kim Min-jae is incredible for ball recoveries, but he might not even start, with Meccano also back in the squad for Bayern Munich over the weekend, and De Ligt could be available for the Wednesday clash, and Dyer and De Ligt is Tuchel's preferred centre-back partnership. So this defensive line I'd go for. One possible change would be Schlotterbeck over Maatsen, or going for another PSG defender like Nuno Mendes. But honestly, I think this defensive line is very strong, with the exception of Dani Carvajal. Building upon what I said in the defensive section, I would hone in on Paris Saint-Germain and go for one, possibly two midfielders from the Parisians. And Zaire Emery is a top talent. He has struggled a bit in this calendar year, not many goals or assists across all competitions, but I still think he has the potential to deliver in the Champions League. He's done it against Dortmund in the past, in the group stages back in December, and I think he can do it again in Matchday 12. But the best PSG midfielder on current form is Vitinha, so if I had to pick one, it would be him over Zaire Emery. But if you are on the Limitless, you could go for both. I know they're very cheap and you're tempted to go for the most expensive options like Musiala and Sane, but I personally think these two have a high ceiling in the semi-finals for the second leg. But we're going to move on to some different options now and different teams. And speaking of which, I think one expensive midfielder can really do the job, and he delivered in Matchday 11, and that's Leroy Sane, who scored a bullet shot. I mean, it was struck with so much venom, it was almost impossible to save, even at the near post, and Leroy Sane is capable of those big moments. That was his first goal since November, I believe. He was on a really bad streak and a really bad drought, but I think he can deliver against Real Madrid. He's done it already, and he is one of the magic players that Bayern Munich have in the Champions League knockout stages alongside Harry Kane and Musiala. Those are the three big threats they have. And with Musiala, who won the penalty that Harry Kane converted, he hasn't scored or assisted in the Champions League since Matchday 3. So I think the Bayern Munich midfielders have underperformed this season, particularly in this competition. But I would go for Leroy Sane if I had to pick one or the other. And now, I think he had a great performance in the first leg of the semi-finals. He should have won the Player of the Match award, and that's going to be Jadon Sancho, who completed 12 dribbles against PSG, and he is the best Borussia Dortmund midfielder for this leg. I know Sabitzer and Brandt are also good options, but Julian Brandt hasn't started a single away match in the Champions League this season, so I'd rather go for Sancho or Sabitzer over the attacking midfielder. And we've now got one midfielder slot left. We all know who I'm going to go for here, and that's Jude Bellingham, who has been quite underwhelming in the Champions League knockout stages. He had a great first half of the season, and he has tailed off a little bit due to injuries. And I know he's popped up with big winners like the one against Barcelona, but I do think he needs to step up in the semi-finals or the final. But regardless if he does or not, I think he will win the Ballon d'Or should Real Madrid win the Champions League, as many of us do expect. But Bellingham is by far the best Real Madrid midfielder. I think Valverde is the only one who could possibly rival him for Matchday 12 and 13. But when you look at the rest, maybe Toni Kroos, who provided a great assist for Vinicius Jr. against Bayern Munich, he's the only one I'd consider. And I don't mind a Real Madrid midfield double up, but that's more so for the wild card or using your free transfers, because I think Real Madrid have the best chance of reaching the Champions League final and of winning the competition. But that's the midfield five. A lot of balance, very similar to the defensive setup with two PSG midfielders. I've got one Borussia Dortmund midfielder here in Jadon Sancho, Leroy Sane, and Jude Bellingham. Now, if you were to go for any other midfielders, I think Musiala would definitely pique some interest, and maybe Serge Gnabry as well. Valverde, as I mentioned, but apart from that, I can't really think of many others apart from Sabitzer. I think the rest probably aren't worth mentioning, and I don't think they'll deliver in Matchday 12. Mbappe has been fairly inconsistent by his lofty standards in the Champions League. He's had some great moments like the two legs against Real Sociedad, away from home against Barcelona, but I think his overall performances have left a bit to be desired. Even against Barcelona, he was completely anonymous at home, and he only stepped up once Barcelona went down to 10 men and started crumbling completely. But Mbappe is a difference maker for Paris Saint-Germain, who are a better team this season under Luis Enrique, with a bit better mental strength, I would argue, and I think they will make a comeback against Dortmund in Matchday 12, and Mbappe will be integral to making that happen. Now, the best front three on paper, and I've said this all along throughout the knockout stages, particularly in the last few match days, Mbappe, Kane and Vinicius, and I still think that is a very solid front three. Vinicius definitely makes this team. He scored a brace against Bayern Munich at the Allianz Arena. He tucked away his penalty. He made a great run to deceive Kim Min-jae, and Toni Kroos found him, and Vinicius was very clinical in that moment. And I think Vinicius is probably the best UCL Fantasy forward for Matchday 12 and 13. But the third forward I'm going for is Rodrigo, because I'm backing Madrid to go through, and I think Harry Kane could be quiet in this game. I could be wrong, of course, and let's see how all these predictions go, but I would favour Rodrigo over Kane in matchday 12. I think he has a high ceiling and Madrid could score 2, 3, possibly 4 goals in this fixture. But if you want to go for Harry Kane, be my guest. I still think he's a great option and you can go for him over Rodrigo and stick to the template front three with Vinicius Jr. and Mbappe. But if you want to go differential, go for Rodrigo. I think he's a great option on the Limitless and even with the other chips as well. Now, to finish off this segment and talking about the best Limitless squad, let's talk about the captaincy. And on the Tuesday, I would go for Kylian Mbappe, despite the fact that he has blanked a few times against Borussia Dortmund now this season. I think he will deliver on the Tuesday. And if he doesn't do enough and you want to change captaincy for the Wednesday, I would go for either Vinicius Jr. or Rodrigo. And of course, some of you might go for Bellingham or even Harry Kane. That is completely fine. But I think the best captaincy options for Real Madrid would be Vinicius or Rodrigo on the Wednesday. Thank you very much for watching this video and listen to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's try to get this video to the 200 likes and let's keep on pushing towards 25k subscribers and beyond. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the other links in the description below for my Patreon, channel memberships, Discord server, the UCL Fantasy League, Draft Hound, as well as Spotify and Amazon Music. Follow me on those platforms and leave a 5-star review. It goes a long way to supporting the channel. I wish you all the best of luck for Matchday 12 and Matchday 13, and I'll see you next time.